The sun shone brilliantly over Lake Nicaragua, casting a golden glow on the water's surface as John and Katie Thomas, a newlywed couple from Ontario, Canada, embarked on their honeymoon adventure. They had chosen Nicaragua for its tropical paradise, seeking a break from the blistering cold of their home country. As they boarded a boat for a tour around the lake, their excitement grew, and they were mesmerized by the breathtaking scenery surrounding them. The lush greenery of the surrounding landscape, the tranquil waters of the lake, and the gentle breeze rustling through the trees created a serene atmosphere. The boat glided smoothly through the water as the couple marveled at the beauty of their surroundings. The boat glided to a halt, and the couple wasted no time in plunging into the mysterious depths of Lake Nicaragua. Their excitement was palpable as they explored the unknown realm beneath the surface, their eyes wide with wonder. The vibrant marine life welcomed them, with colorful fish darting and swirling around them, and coral swaying with otherworldly gardens. But as they ventured deeper, the water grew darker, and an uneasy feeling crept over them. Katie's senses sharpened as she noticed a foreboding shape lurking in the murky abyss below. Her heart skipped a beat as she squinted, trying to discern its identity, but it vanished before her eyes. The tension in the water was palpable, and a sense of mystery hung in the air, sending shivers down their spines. What could it have been? The couple exchanged nervous glances. Their curiosity piqued, and a sense of trepidation gnawed at them as they continued to explore the enigmatic underwater world, wary of what other secrets it might hold. Little did they know, a colossal bull shark had been silently lurking in the unfathomable depths of the lake, keenly observing their every move. Drawn by the commotion caused by the boat, the predator had been stealthily closing in, patiently biding its time. John, unknowingly separated from Katie, found himself alone in the water, vulnerable and oblivious to the impending danger. With a sudden bone-chilling jolt, a fin sliced through the surface, sending ripples of fear through the air. The massive shark circled closer, its predatory instincts kicking into high gear. Its eyes glimmered with primal fear as it homed in on its prey. The water seemed to thicken with tension as the shark's sleek form glided sinuously through the shadows, circling John with calculated precision. The atmosphere was suffused with palpable suspense as the shark closed the distance, its dark eyes fixed on its unsuspecting target, ready to strike at any moment. The couple's idyllic swim had turned into a heart-stopping battle for survival, as John remained oblivious to the deadly predator lurking just beneath the surface, poised to unleash its primal power. Katie's heart skipped a beat as she realized the danger that her husband was in. She screamed, trying to warn John of the impending attack, but it was too late. In a split second, the bull shark shot out from under the water like a torpedo, its jaws clamping down on John's leg with brutal force. John cried out in agony as the shark thrashed, mauling him in a frenzy. Katie's screams echoed across the lake, alerting their guide, who was still on the boat. He sprang into action, grabbing a spear gun and a knife, and leapt into the water to rescue John. The water turned into a swirling vortex of blood and water as the shark continued its attack, tearing through John's flesh mercilessly. Katie could only watch in horror, paralyzed by fear. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, the guide deftly made his way towards John and the ferocious shark, his mind racing with urgency. As he closed in, he took a deep breath, steadying his nerves, and with one swift motion, thrust his spear gun into the side of the frenzied predator. The shark recoiled, its jaws tightening around John's body, unwilling to let go of its prey. Undeterred, the guide charged forward, his knife glinting menacingly in the murky water. With each frenzied stab, he fought with all his might, plunging his blade into the beast's belly in a desperate bid to free John from its relentless grip. The water boiled with tension, as the predator thrashed and writhed, its primal instincts driving it to fight until the bitter end. The struggle was fierce, and the outcome uncertain, as the guide fought tooth and nail to save John from certain doom. The water seemed to tremble with the ferocity of the battle, the guide's frantic movements illuminated by the glimmering light of the underwater world. But with each passing second, the guide's efforts paid off, and the shark's grip on John began to loosen. The atmosphere was charged with nail-biting suspense as the guide valiantly battled the predator, fighting for the lives of those in his care. Minutes felt like an eternity as John endured the excruciating pain of the shark's attack. His vision blurred, and he felt his strength fading. Katie's cry spurred the guide to fight even harder, determined to save John. At last, the bull shark succumbed to its injuries, and with one final stab from the guide's knife, it released John and retreated into the depths of the lake. The guide swiftly pulled John's limp body towards the boat, leaving a trail of blood. Katie's emotions were a mix of relief and horror as she saw her husband's mangled leg, but she was grateful he was alive. They rushed to the hospital, where John underwent emergency surgery, resulting in the amputation of his leg to save his life. Despite the tragedy, John and Katie's love for each other only grew stronger. They learned to cherish every moment, living life to the fullest, and never taking anything for granted. Melissa's colleagues at the marketing firm had often wondered if she was a machine. Her unparalleled work ethic, unrelenting passion, and unwavering commitment had earned her the reputation of being the hardest worker in the company. Her persistence and determination had finally paid off when she received a promotion, but it was not enough to keep her from feeling burnout. As the hustle and bustle of the city began to take its toll on her, Melissa craved an escape to a place where she could find solace and rejuvenation. She decided to take her whole family to the island of Maui in Hawaii, a place known for its idyllic beaches and tranquil waters. The idea of exploring the stunning coastline and indulging in water activities was enough to invigorate her soul. Melissa's family was a diverse and dynamic group, with each member having their own unique traits and personalities. Her parents, who had retired after years of hard work, were a happy couple, enjoying the peace and serenity that life after work provided. Melissa's younger brother, on the other hand, was a self-proclaimed daredevil, always seeking new adventures and taking risks that most would avoid. Her younger sister was the baby of the family, looking up to Melissa as an inspiration and role model. She was eager to follow in her big sister's footsteps, always watching her every move and admiring her accomplishments with an air of awe and wonder. Despite their differences, the family loved and supported each other, ready to face any challenge that came their way. The island of Maui was a tropical haven that welcomed Melissa's family with open arms. The turquoise waters glimmered in the sunlight, and the white sandy beaches stretched for miles, inviting them to explore. The constant murmur of the waves crashing against the shore provided a soothing soundtrack to their adventures, while the soft sand tickled their toes. But beneath the idyllic scenery lay a world of danger, and it was only a matter of time before they would find themselves entangled in its grasp. As the sun began to set, Melissa and her family sat down at a beachside bar to enjoy a drink and soak up the island's ambiance. A friendly local overheard their conversation and offered a suggestion that would change their vacation forever. The local recommended that they explore the Molokini crater, a dormant undersea volcanic crater. Intrigued, Melissa and her family eagerly inquired for more details about the location. The local described it as a magnificent wonder of nature, with an abundance of marine life and underwater caves waiting to be explored. As the group imagined themselves diving into the clear blue water of the crater, they felt a sense of excitement and apprehension. They had never attempted anything like this before, and the unknown dangers lurking beneath the surface added to the thrill. The idea of venturing into a crater formed by a volcano that had been active in the past made their hearts race. Despite their hesitation, They decided to take the plunge and embark on this new adventure. On the day of the dive, the family was bubbling with excitement as they strapped on their diving gear and jumped into the cool, clear water surrounding Molokini Crater. The vibrant colors of the coral reef below were mesmerizing, and the family couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder and awe at the otherworldly beauty before them. Schools of brightly colored fish swam around them, while majestic sea turtles glided gracefully by. The eerie silence of the underwater world only added to the sense of mystery and adventure that Melissa and her family felt. But as they delved deeper into the crater, a feeling of unease began to settle in the pit of their stomachs. However, while swimming, Melissa noticed a group of large shadows lurking in the murky waters. Curious, she used her underwater flashlight to shine a light on the shadows. Melissa was petrified to see a pack of tiger sharks stalking the murky waters. In a panic, Melissa swam to the surface and alerted her whole family. The family were in a frenzy, thrashing relentlessly with their efforts to reach the safety of the waiting boat. The chaos caught the attention of the sharks. The pack of sharks swam towards the commotion. Realizing that there's prey in the water, the predators went on a feeding frenzy. The rest of the family were almost upon the boat, but Melissa was not so lucky. In a matter of seconds, she was surrounded and circled around by a pack of hungry tiger sharks. Melissa could see the fins of 5 sharks circling around her. She tried to swim away as fast as she could, but the sharks were faster. Suddenly, one of the predators lunged at her, biting Melissa's left leg. Melissa screamed in agony as she felt the shark's razor-sharp teeth tear her flesh. The water around them was crimson red with Melissa's blood mixing with the salt water. The smell of the blood in the water crazed the other sharks, who were overcome with their primal instincts and hunger. The other sharks started attacking Melissa, who was helpless against the might of the predatory beast of the sea. As the first shark latched onto Melissa's leg, tossing her around like a rag doll in the water, one shark latched onto Melissa's arm. Suddenly, in a bone-crunching bite, both sharks bit off Melissa's limbs. Melissa couldn't even scream, as another shark bit off her head. The sharks continued their harrowing attack. Some sharks began ripping the other limbs, while one bit on Melissa's torso, dragging her mangled, lifeless body to the depths of the ocean. Melissa's family could only watch in horror as this pack of tiger sharks ripped her apart. The Coast Guard responded to the distress call of the guide, but it was no use. After several days of search, no part of Melissa was found. Her family was left with the emotional scar of watching their beloved Melissa devoured by the primal predators of the sea. Laura was an internationally renowned bikini model, whose breathtaking beauty and fearless attitude had taken her to some of the most remote and exotic places on the planet. But even for someone like her, there was nothing quite like the breathtaking mix of beauty and danger found in Shark Ray Alley, a stretch of crystal-clear waters off the coast of Belize. The azure waters of the Caribbean Sea glimmered under the scorching sun, illuminating the vibrant corals and tropical fish that swam within. But beneath the surface, the true highlight of Shark Ray Alley was something else: the sharks. The nurse sharks were a sight to behold, with their smooth gray skin and majestic presence. These creatures were known for their gentle and serene demeanor, making them a popular choice for photo shoots. Laura had swam with them previously, and she felt completely at ease with their company. The way they glided through the water with effortless grace, their inquisitive eyes following her every move, made for an unforgettable experience. As the photo shoot was going smoothly and the crew was well ahead of schedule, Laura decided to take a dip in the tranquil waters, feeling the sun's warmth on her skin. The nurse sharks gracefully circled around her, as if performing an elegant ballet, creating a serene and peaceful atmosphere. Laura felt at ease as she moved through the clear turquoise water, admiring the vibrant coral and fish beneath her. It was a moment of pure bliss, a temporary escape from the chaos of the world. She was so confident in the docile nature of the nurse sharks that she let her guard down, unaware of the ominous presence lurking just beyond her vision. The tranquility of Shark Ray Alley was shattered in an instant. The water that was once so calm turned into a bloody red frenzy. Laura's serene swim turned into a nightmare as she felt an excruciating pain rip through her leg, like hot iron searing her flesh. When she looked down, her worst fears were realized. A bull shark had sunk its razor-sharp teeth into her skin, intent on dragging her deeper into the abyss. The predator's eyes burned with fierce hunger, its jaws clamping down tighter and tighter, as if nothing would stop it from its desired meal. The agony was beyond words, and every movement felt like a struggle against death itself. Laura's screams became choked gasps as she felt herself being dragged into the abyss of the water, her body twisting and contorting as she tried to break free from the shark's vice-like grip. She could feel the water pressure building around her, suffocating her as she struggled to breathe. The bull shark's eyes were fixated on her, its razor-sharp teeth cutting into her flesh like hot knives through butter. Laura could feel her flesh ripping apart from the attacks of this primal predator. The crystal-clear waters of Shark Ray Alley were now transformed into a murky, bloody nightmare. The serene atmosphere was replaced with terror and chaos as Laura's struggles intensified. Her body convulsed with agony as the bull shark continued its merciless attack. Its jaws were clamped down on her leg, pulling her deeper and deeper into the abyss. Laura's vision blurred, and the sound of her own frantic breathing became muffled as the water consumed her. Every second felt like an eternity, and the shark's grip showed no signs of relenting. With her strength fading and the shark's grip tightening, Laura's heart sank. She knew it was only a matter of time before the predator would deliver the final blow. But in a last-ditch effort, she mustered up her energy and kicked out at the bull shark's sensitive snout. The impact jolted the predator, causing it to recoil momentarily. For a fleeting moment, Laura felt a glimmer of hope. The tension in the water was palpable as Laura gasped for air, her heart racing with fear. She knew that the bull shark was still lurking somewhere in the depths below, biding its time before striking again. The quiet stillness of the ocean was shattered by the sounds of her ragged breathing, the only thing standing between her and the ruthless predator. Laura braced herself for the inevitable, knowing that the next attack could be fatal. Laura desperately dragged herself through the water, her injured leg throbbing with every movement. The once calm sea around her now felt like a death trap as she sensed the shark's presence closing in on her. She could hear the creature's powerful strokes through the water, its sharp senses locked onto her scent. Laura's heart raced as she realized the futility of her efforts. The shark was coming for her, and there was nothing she could do to escape. She stopped moving and closed her eyes, steeling herself for the inevitable attack. Suddenly, a massive shadow eclipsed the sun, and Laura's eyes flew open, just in time to see the shark launch itself out of the water. Its body was a blur of sleek, muscular power, its jaws wide open to reveal a terrifying arsenal of teeth. The shark was a force of nature, beautiful in its deadly grace. The jaws of the monstrous shark were only inches away from Laura's face when a sharp object pierced through the predator's open mouth, causing it to let out a piercing screech. The spear gun had landed with a resounding thud, and with one swift motion, had claimed the life of the frenzied beast. The water was stained with blood of both predator and prey, and the lifeless body of the shark bobbed up and down in the waves, a stark contrast to its former fearsome form. Laura's body went limp, her mind unable to process what just happened. She floated in the water like a lifeless doll, her eyes staring blankly at the red-stained waves around her. Suddenly, a pair of strong hands gripped her shoulders, pulling her back to reality. It was Johnny, the cameraman, who had saved her from the jaws of death. He hoisted Laura onto the boat, her body shivering from the shock. The sound of the shot that killed the shark echoed in her ears, and she knew that she owed her life to Johnny's quick thinking. However, the memory of the terrifying incident would haunt her for the rest of her days, a reminder of the fragility of life in the wild. Sebastian and Olivia were a surfer couple from California, and they had been recently married. They always dreamed of spending their honeymoon in Hawaii, and they had been planning their dream honeymoon for months. They were both passionate about the ocean and the thrill of catching waves, and they couldn't wait to explore the famous surf spots in Hawaii. It was the perfect destination for the romantic getaway. As they landed in Honolulu, they were greeted by the sun and warm, salty breeze and the sound of waves crashing against the shore. They checked into their cozy beachfront cottage and immediately fell in love with the stunning scenery around them. And as they stepped onto the sand, they felt like they were in paradise. The first few days of their honeymoon were spent surfing some of the best waves in the world. They visited Waikiki Beach, where they rode the gentle waves and watched the local surfers show off their skills. They also went to the North Shore, where they challenged themselves with the bigger, more powerful waves. They also hiked through the lush rainforest, and they visited the historic Pearl Harbor Memorial. On the second week of their honeymoon, they decided to visit the island of Maui. There, they rented a Jeep and drove along the scenic road to Hana, taking in breathtaking views of the coastline. One day, they decided to try their luck at a secluded surf spot that they had heard about from the locals. It was a hidden gem, surrounded by stunning cliffs and crystal-clear water. As they paddled out, they noticed that there was no other surfers around, and they felt like they had found their own private paradise. But as they waited for the next set of waves, they suddenly heard a loud splash behind them. They noticed a dark shape moving towards them. At first, they thought it was a dolphin, but as it got closer, they realized it was a tiger shark, its jaws wide open. The shark's razor-sharp teeth were visible, and the couple froze in terror. Their hearts raced as they watched the shark swim towards them, its sharp teeth glinting in the sun. Sebastian and Olivia tried to paddle away, but the shark quickly caught up to them. The couple could see the shark circling them, and they knew they were in serious trouble. Fear filled their hearts as they saw the massive predator getting closer and closer. Olivia's heart was pounding as she remembered stories of tiger sharks attacking humans. She looked over at Sebastian, who was trying to remain calm, but she could see the fear in his eyes too. They had never felt so vulnerable before. The couple tried to stay together and keep their boards close, hoping that the shark would lose interest and swim away. But the tiger shark seemed to be fixated on them, and it kept circling them, getting closer with every pass. Olivia's mind raced as she tried to come up with a plan. She knew that they had to stay calm and not make any sudden movements that would attract the shark's attention. They had to make themselves as small and unappetizing as possible. As the shark swam closer, Sebastian grabbed Olivia's hand and whispered to her to stay still. He knew that any sudden movements could provoke the shark and make it attack. They watched in horror as the shark came closer and closer until they could see its eyes staring at them. Suddenly, the shark turned and swam away, disappearing into the depths of the ocean. The couple let out a sigh of relief, but they knew they had narrowly escaped a terrifying fate. They started paddling towards the shore as quickly as they could, hoping that the shark wasn't following them anymore. They could feel the fear rising in their chest, but they refused to give up. They kept paddling, their arms burning with exertion. Finally, they reached the shore and they scrambled under the sand, panting and sweating. Sebastian and Olivia paddled back to the shore, shaken but grateful to be alive. They knew that they had been lucky, and they would never forget the terror they had experienced that day. From that day on, they vowed to always be aware of the dangers of the ocean and to respect its creatures, especially the mighty tiger shark. As their honeymoon came to an end, Sebastian and Olivia knew that they had had a one-of-a-kind experience and made memories that would last a lifetime. The beaches of South Carolina are a sight to behold. The crystal clear water sparkled under the bright sun, and the soft sand felt warm and inviting underfoot. The ocean breeze carried with it the scent of salt and sea, and the sound of crashing waves provided a soothing background melody. Amidst this idyllic setting, a group of college kids had descended upon the beach for spring break, eager to let loose and have some fun. Andy was one of them, a tall and lanky guy with a mischievous grin and a carefree spirit. He had convinced his friends to rent a small yacht for the day, promising them a day of adventure and excitement. As they sailed further away from the shore, the group cracked open beers and started to let loose. The sun was shining, the water was warm, and the day was theirs for the taking. They joked and laughed, enjoying each other's company and the freedom that came with being young and carefree. But as the alcohol flowed more freely, inhibitions were lowered, and the group's sense of judgment became clouded. Someone suggested they dive off the boat and swim around in the deep waters below, daring each other to see who could stay under the longest. Andy was hesitant at first, knowing that the deep waters were home to all kinds of creatures, some of them dangerous. But the peer pressure and the allure of adventure got the better of him. He took a deep breath and plunged into the cool water, the others following suit. For a few moments it was all laughter and splashing around, but then, out of nowhere, a dark shadow loomed beneath the surface. Andy barely had time to register what was happening before a massive creature revealed itself to Andy and all his friends. To their horror, they met the apex predator of the sea, the great white shark. As Andy struggled in the water, his body thrashing with fear, his eyes locked onto the great white shark's eyes. They were cold and black, filled with a primal hunger that chilled him to the bone. The shark's massive jaws opened wide, revealing row upon row of razor-sharp teeth, each one glinting in the sunlight. Andy's heart pounded in his chest as he fought to stay afloat, but the shark was relentless. Its powerful jaws clamped down on his leg, the teeth sinking deep into his flesh. The pain was excruciating, a white-hot fire that shot through his entire body. The freezing ocean engulfed him, the salt water stinging his eyes and nostrils. He kicked and thrashed, desperate to reach the surface and escape the jaws of the great white. But the shark was relentless, circling him with the precision of a hunter, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Blood seeped into the water from the gash on Andy's leg, a result of the shark's initial assault. The metallic tang of blood filled the water, further inciting the shark's primal instincts. Andy's heart raced as he felt the beast's massive jaws clamp down on his leg, its serrated teeth tearing through flesh and bone like a hot knife through butter. He screamed, the pain unbearable, as the shark shook its massive head, trying to rip him apart. Andy's survival instincts kicked in, and he fought back with everything he had. He jabbed at the shark's eyes, desperately trying to pry open its monstrous jaws that were clamped around his leg. The water turned into a crimson hue as blood mixed with seawater, creating a macabre scene. His vision blurred, his strength waning. Andy knew he was in the fight for his life. He mustered every ounce of energy left in him and delivered a powerful punch to the shark's snout. The shark finally released him, its eyes rolling back in momentary shock, giving Andy the opportunity he needed. He propelled himself towards the surface, blood trailing behind him like a grotesque crimson ribbon. His friends on the boat were screaming his name, reaching out for him as he breached the surface, gasping for air. But the shark wasn't done yet. With a final burst of speed, the great white charged at Andy, its massive jaws gaping wide. Andy's friends watched in horror as the shark's teeth closed around him, tearing him apart in a gruesome spectacle. Blood sprayed into the air, painting the ocean in a deep shade of red as Andy's body disappeared beneath the surface, consumed by a ravenous predator. The sea calmed, the only evidence of the harrowing ordeal being the blood-stained water, a haunting reminder of the brutal power and unforgiving nature of the great white shark. The rest of the trip was a blur for the group. They made up stories about what had happened to Andy, telling anyone who asked that he had met a girl and decided to stay in South Carolina a while longer. But the guilt weighed heavily on them all, especially as the weeks turned into months, and there was still no sign of Andy's body. Matthew and Gina's shared love for marine life started when they were kids exploring their hometown beaches. They spent hours wading in the waves, chasing after starfish, crabs, and dreaming of the underwater world. As they grew older, their passion for the ocean deepened, and they turned their hobby into a profession. Together, they created a YouTube channel dedicated to wildlife documentaries, specializing in sharks. Their unique videos showcased the lives of these creatures and dispelled many of the myths and misconceptions that surrounded them. They braved dangerous waters and weather to capture stunning footage that left viewers spellbound. Behind the camera, Matthew and Gina were not only colleagues, but also lifelong best friends, with a deep respect for the ocean and its inhabitants. That's why when their YouTube channel hit 1 million subscribers, Matthew and Gina were over the moon. They had come a long way since starting their wildlife documentaries together and wanted to celebrate with their loyal viewers. To show their gratitude, they decided to let their followers choose the topic for their next documentary. They set up a poll and asked viewers to vote for the wildlife they wanted to see next. The poll results were in, and the winner was the bull sharks of the Zambezi River in Mozambique. The duo packed their bags and headed to Mozambique, where they met up with their local guide, who would take them to the best spots to film the bull sharks. They spent several days on the river, getting up early in the morning to catch the sharks feeding, and staying out late at night to capture their nocturnal habits. The 3 days of the shoot had been nothing short of amazing. Matthew and Gina had captured some incredible footage of the bull sharks in the Zambezi River, showcasing their strength, speed, and grace. But there was something that had been nagging at Matthew ever since they arrived. Despite bull sharks being known to be solitary hunters, many of the sharks they observed were hunting in groups, coordinating their attacks and sharing their prey. This was an unusual phenomenon, and Matthew couldn't help but wonder why this was happening. As he pondered this mystery, Gina simply shrugged it off, saying that it was just a coincidence. But Matthew knew there was more to it than that. He could sense it in the way the sharks moved, the way they communicated with each other, and the way they worked together to take down their prey. On the 4th day of their expedition along the river, while Gina and Matthew were busy filming at the mouth of the river, Gina's sharp eyes caught a glimpse of a bull shark going about its hunting routine, unperturbed by their presence. Gina signaled Matthew to join her in getting a better shot of the magnificent creature, but he urged her to leave the shark alone and exit the water. Gina, entranced by the shark's sleek movements, ignored his warnings and persisted in tracking the predator, unaware of the lurking danger nearby. Only when it was too late did she realize she had become the target of another apex predator. Dread washed over Gina as she faced a colossal 13-foot bull shark with lifeless eyes, realizing she was the hunted, not the hunter. Time stood still as she grappled with shock, her heart pounding in her chest as she tried to make sense of the situation. With lightning speed, the bull shark lunged at Gina, sinking its teeth into her neck. The sheer force of the attack was overwhelming, and Gina felt the crunch of bones as the shark's serrated teeth tore through her flesh. Blood gushed out of her carotid arteries, staining the once murky waters a horrifying shade of crimson red. Gina's body went into shock as she desperately tried to fend off the relentless predator, but her strength faded quickly. The pain in her grievous wound was unbearable, and the shark's thrashing only worsened the damage. Gina could feel her life draining away, her vision growing hazy as the world around her blurred into darkness. It was a harrowing and tragic end to what was supposed to be an ordinary day of filming. Matthew stood frozen in terror as he watched the horrific scene unfold before him. He couldn't move, couldn't bring himself to intervene as the bull shark continued to maul his best friend Gina to death. The sight was gut-wrenching, and Matthew felt a sense of helplessness wash over him. But the horror didn't end there. To Matthew's horror, he saw other bull sharks converging on the gruesome scene. They were drawn by the scent of blood in the water, and they were closing in fast. Matthew realized with a sinking feeling that Gina's brutal fate was not over yet. One particularly large bull shark, measured around 10 feet in length, charged towards Gina and bit her leg clean off her body. The shark swiftly grabbed its prize and disappeared into the depths of the water, leaving a trail of blood in its wake. The other bull sharks wasted no time in joining the feeding frenzy. They tore into Gina's lifeless, mangled body, ripping off her arms, legs, and head with vicious ferocity. The water turned a sickening shade of red as Gina's blood mixed with the surrounding currents. Matthew could hardly believe what he was witnessing. Within moments, nothing was left of Gina. Her body had been reduced to a gory mess, devoured by the hungry bull sharks. Once Matthew realized that his friend Gina was gone, he snapped out of his shock and realized that he needed to get out of the water before he became the next target. His body was filled with adrenaline and fear as he swam fast as he could, his arms and legs pumping furiously through the water. He had never swum so fast in his life. He pushed himself to the brink as he felt his muscles burning while swimming. Looking back, he saw a fin approaching, and he swam even faster, gritting his teeth to reach the shore. Collapsing onto the sand, he cried uncontrollably. This woman, his best friend, was ripped apart by a pack of bull sharks, and he couldn't do anything to save her. Matthew survived the ordeal, but the emotional and psychological trauma of that incident will stay with him for the rest of his life. As Mary submerged herself in the crystal-clear waters of Ningaloo Reef, Australia, her wetsuit hugged her body tightly, making her feel as if she was part of the ocean herself. With her hair floating around her, she swam with effortless elegance through the vibrant blue world that surrounded her. Her eyes shone with excitement as she took in the breathtaking scenery that lay beneath her. She had spent countless hours studying the intricate ecosystem of the reef, from the colorful coral to the dazzling schools of fish that swam by. And as she explored this mesmerizing underwater wonderland once again, she was filled with awe at the intricate balance of life that existed there. Each time she plunged into the depths of the reef, Mary felt like she was stepping into a magical realm, where the beauty and harmony of nature never ceased to amaze her. Ningaloo Reef was a coral paradise, with its stunning array of corals in all shapes and sizes, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that seemed almost otherworldly. Mary had dedicated her life to understanding these complex ecosystems and their inhabitants. She had traveled the world, but Ningaloo Reef held a special place in her heart. It was her laboratory, her playground, and her sanctuary. Mary was an accomplished coral reef biologist, known for her meticulous research and unwavering passion for marine conservation. She had made significant contributions to the field of marine science and was respected by her peers for her expertise and dedication. Her love for the ocean and its creatures was infectious, and she had a deep sense of responsibility to protect and preserve these fragile ecosystems for future generations. As Mary descended further into the depths of the reef, she marveled at the sheer size of some of the coral formations. They were unlike anything she'd ever seen before, and she eagerly began documenting her findings. She swam gracefully, her movements fluid and precise, as she observed the intricate symbiotic relationships between the corals and the myriad of marine life that called this reef home. As Mary focused her gaze on the majestic coral formation, a sense of calm and wonder enveloped her. She marveled at its intricate patterns and vivid colors, feeling like she'd uncovered a hidden treasure in the depths of the sea. But then something changed. A prickling sensation crawled up her spine, making her turn around abruptly. Her eyes widened in horror as she spotted a massive, ominous figure emerging from the shadows. Its body was massive, its movements deliberate and calculated. Mary's heart raced as she realized that she was face to face with one of the ocean's greatest predators. The creature's cold, unblinking eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, Mary was frozen with fear. As Mary's eyes adjusted to the shadowy figure, a wave of fear washed over her. Her heart pounded in her chest as she recognized the unmistakable shape of a 13-foot tiger shark, a predator that could easily overpower her with its muscular body and razor-sharp teeth. The water around her seemed to grow colder as the shark circled her, its menacing gaze never leaving her vulnerable form. Mary's muscles tensed as she remembered her extensive training, knowing that every second counted in this deadly game of survival. With trembling hands, she reached for the knife strapped to her thigh, her fingers fumbling for a moment before finally closing around the hilt. She held the weapon tightly, ready to strike at a moment's notice, her eyes scanning the dark waters for any signs of the shark's next move. The tension was palpable as she waited for the inevitable attack, her heart racing with the knowledge that her life was in mortal danger. The tiger shark surged towards Mary with astonishing speed, its massive jaws opening wide, revealing row upon row of razor-sharp teeth. She reacted with lightning reflexes, slashing at the shark with her knife, aiming for its sides in a desperate attempt to fend off the imminent attack. But the predator seemed relentless, undeterred by her efforts. Its powerful muscles propelled it forward, and in a split second, Mary felt searing pain as the shark's jaws closed around her right arm. She screamed, her mind reeling in shock as she watched in horror as her limb was torn off in a brutal bone-crunching snap. Blood clouded the water, and Mary's body convulsed in agony as she struggled to comprehend the nightmare unfolding before her. Mary's mind raced as she fought to stay calm. She knew she had to get to the surface and get help, but the shark was relentless. It circled her, its cold eyes fixed on her remaining limbs. With all her strength, Mary tried to swim towards the surface, but the shark was faster. It lunged at her, latching on to one of her legs. Mary kicked with all her might, using her free leg to try and fend off the shark, but it was too powerful. It thrashed and ragdolled her under the water, the surrounding water turning dark red with her blood and pieces of flesh from the brutal attack. Mary's screams were muffled by the water as she fought for her life, but the shark was relentless. With one loud crunch, the shark bit off Mary's leg, leaving her defenseless and fading fast. She felt the pain and despair wash over her as she struggled to stay conscious. The shark circled her once more before it lunged at her, this time going for her neck and head. Mary felt the unbearable pain as her flesh ripped apart. And then, everything went dark. Days passed, and reports of Mary's disappearance surfaced. The authorities searched the area, but no body was found. The news assumed that she was devoured by sharks frequenting the area. Mary's family was devastated by the news, and they mourned her loss. The incident served as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath the waters, even in the most beautiful of places. Mary's legacy lived on, and her research continued to inspire generations of marine biologists. Her death was a tragic loss, but her memory would always be treasured by those who knew and loved her. For 15 years, James had been chasing the thrill of the perfect wave. As a skilled surfer, he's always on the lookout for new surf spots with the most exciting currents and biggest swells. He lives for the rush of adrenaline that comes with riding unpredictable waters and conquering the volatility of the sea. So when he heard about the Gold Coast in Australia, James knew he had to go. It's a surfer's paradise, a place where the ocean swells and wind conditions combine to create some of the most perfect waves on the planet. The surf breaks in Gold Coast are legendary for a good reason. The waves are powerful and consistent, rising up like liquid mountains before crashing down with thunderous force. As James sets foot on the golden sand of the Gold Coast, he feels the energy and excitement of the surf culture all around him. The sun beats down on his skin, and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore fills his ears. He can't wait to paddle out and catch his first wave, to feel the rush of adrenaline and the joy of being one with the ocean. For a surfer like James, the Gold Coast is more than just a destination. It's a pilgrimage to a place where the elements come together to create the perfect wave, and he's ready to ride it all the way to the shore. For the first few days of his trip to the Gold Coast, James had been exploring the vibrant underwater world that lay just beneath the surface of the crystal clear waters. Snorkeling and scuba diving had become his daily routine, and he marveled at the colorful corals, exotic fish, and elusive sea turtles that had captured his heart. One sunny afternoon, James decided to venture out on a solo swim, feeling confident and at ease in the water. He was surrounded by the beauty of the reef and enjoyed the sensation of gliding through the water. Although he had heard stories of sharks in the area, James brushed off the thought, knowing that shark attacks were rare and that he had years of experience in the water. As James swam along, admiring the stunning underwater scenery, he noticed a large shadow approaching him. His heart skipped a beat as he realized it was a great white shark. The massive creature glided gracefully through the water, its sleek body perfectly designed for hunting. James was awestruck by the sight of the majestic predator, but he knew that he had to remain calm and collected if he wanted to survive this encounter. James was paralyzed with fear as the great white shark closed in on him, its jaws wide open. He tried to swim away as quickly as he could, but the shark was too fast, and it was upon him in an instant. With a sharp snap of its powerful jaws, the predator clamped down on James's leg, piercing through his skin and pulling him down into the depths of the ocean. James's adrenaline kicked in as he felt the searing pain shoot through his body. He knew he had to fight for his life. He started punching and kicking the shark with all his might, trying to break free from its powerful grip. The water around him turned into a murky red as he continued to struggle against the predator's jaws. Despite his best efforts, James soon realized that he was no match for the shark's immense strength. The creature continued to drag him down deeper and deeper into the ocean, making it harder and harder for him to breathe. James knew he had to come up with a new plan if he wanted to survive this brutal attack. James's heart raced in his chest as he grappled with a massive great white shark that had latched onto his leg. He kicked and thrashed, desperately trying to break free from the predator's vice-like grip. The shark's teeth pierced deeper into his flesh, sending shockwaves of pain through his body. But James refused to succumb to fear. Drawing upon every ounce of survival instincts, he summoned a surge of determination. He jammed his fingers into the shark's eyes, delivering swift and forceful punches to its gills with his free hand. The shark recoiled, loosening its grip on James's leg for a fleeting moment. It was all the opportunity James needed. With a burst of strength, he wriggled and twisted, finally breaking free from the shark's jaws. Blood clouded the water around him, but James didn't have time to dwell on the pain. He kicked upwards with all his might, desperate for a breath of air. The shark pursued him, sensing a chance for another attack, but James was resolute. Flipping onto his back, James delivered a powerful kick to the shark's snout, stunning it momentarily and buying himself precious seconds. He broke the surface of the water, gasping for breath like a man possessed. The pain in his leg was throbbing, but he refused to let it deter him. Summoning every ounce of strength left in his weary body, James swam toward the nearby rocks with renewed determination. He fought against the resistance of the water, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. Finally, with sheer determination and relentless effort, he reached the safety of the shore, dragging his battered body onto the sand. James lay motionless on the sand, his body bleeding profusely. A small crowd gathered, their faces a mix of shock and horror. As James cried out for help, a quick-thinking beachgoer called the paramedics, who arrived in record time to rush him to the hospital. For weeks, James fought for his life in the hospital, his body weak and battered. Yet he refused to give up. With an unwavering support of his loved ones, James slowly but surely regained his strength. Though he would always bear the scars of that fateful day, James emerged from this ordeal with a newfound appreciation for the beauty and fragility of life. Brent had always been an adventurous soul, always seeking out new and exciting ways to experience the world. Today was no exception, and he had decided to take to the skies with a paraglider over the stunningly beautiful turquoise waters of Recife, Brazil. The bright sun beamed down on him, and the wind was perfect for his adventure. Despite his adventurous spirit, Brent was always careful, and he double-checked his equipment before setting off. As he soared higher and higher, the view from the top was breathtaking, and the warm breeze blowing across his face. Brent felt as free as a bird as he glided effortlessly across the crystal-clear waters below. The rush of excitement he felt was indescribable, and he knew that it was a moment he would never forget. Brent was having the time of his life when suddenly, the wind changed direction, becoming stronger than Brent had expected. He tried to control his glider, but the turbulence caused a collapse of his glider, leaving Brent plummeting towards the sea. Brent's heart raced as he braced himself for the impact. He hit the water hard, and the force knocked the breath out of him. He managed to swim to the surface and tried to grab onto the remains of his glider, hoping to stay afloat. But then he noticed something moving in the water, something massive. Suddenly, a fin appeared in the distance, and Brent realized with horror that he was in shark-infested waters. Brent tried to stay calm, but his heart was pounding in his chest, and he knew he had to think fast to survive. He had heard stories of bull sharks that roamed the waters of Recife, and now he feared that he was about to become their prey. In the distance, Brent could see the fin of a massive creature. It started to circle him, and Brent could feel his life flashing before his eyes. He was stuck, floating in the water with nowhere to go. He tried to scream for help, but his voice was hoarse. Suddenly, the water started to swirl around him, and Brent knew that something was coming. In the distance, he saw a massive bull shark heading straight for him. It was the largest shark he had ever seen, and it was moving quickly towards him. Brent's heart raced, and he knew he had to act fast. The shark charged at Brent, and he reacted quickly, kicking it on the nose with all his might. The blow sent the shark away temporarily, giving Brent a few seconds to compose himself. His heart was still racing, but he managed to fend off the first attack. But the shark wasn't finished yet. After 5 long minutes, the shark circled back, and this time, it was more aggressive than before. Brent's heart seized in his chest as he saw the massive bull shark charging at him with unrelenting determination. Its sleek body cut through the water with deadly speed, its eyes fixed on Brent as if he was its only prey. He braced himself, summoning every ounce of courage to fight back. As the shark closed in, Brent kicked and thrashed, desperately trying to fend off the beast. But the shark was a force of nature, its massive jaws clamping down on Brent's left leg with brutal force. Brent's worst nightmare had come true, as the shark's teeth sank into his flesh, sending waves of searing pain through his body. He let out a guttural scream, his mind racing with fear and adrenaline as he grappled with the imminent danger. With blood staining the water around him, Brent knew he couldn't afford to be passive. He had to fight back, or he would become the next victim of the relentless bull shark. With trembling hands, he reached for the knife strapped to his leg, his fingers fumbling in his urgency. The knife felt small in his grasp, but it was his only hope. Summoning every bit of strength he had, Brent plunged the knife into the shark's gills. The predator recoiled in agony. The shark released his grip on his leg and thrashed away, leaving Brent floating in the water, his leg a mangled mess of torn flesh and blood. The pain was excruciating, but Brent knew he couldn't give up. He tried to stay calm, but panic threatened to overwhelm him as he felt the blood flowing from his leg, creating a crimson trail in the water. He knew he had to get out of there, and fast. He scanned the surroundings, looking for any sign of help, but the vast expanse of the ocean seemed unforgiving and empty. Despite the pain and the growing sense of dread, Brent forced himself to stay afloat, using every bit of willpower to stay conscious. His vision blurred, and the salt water stung his open wound, but he refused to let go. He was determined to survive. Just when he thought all hope was lost, a distant speck caught his eye. A fishing boat was approaching, like a lifeline in the vast ocean. Brent waved his arms frantically, his voice hoarse from his earlier screams, as the crew spotted him and rushed to his aid. Brent was pulled aboard the boat, his body limp, and his mind hazy from the pain and shock. The crew acted swiftly, wrapping his leg in makeshift bandages and doing their best to stabilize him. Brent felt a mix of relief and gratitude as he was whisked away to the hospital, knowing that he had narrowly escaped the jaws of death. In the hospital, Brent underwent multiple surgeries and a grueling recovery process. The physical pain was immense, but the emotional scars ran even deeper. Brent had faced his mortality in the most brutal way, and the trauma would stay with him for a lifetime. Evan, a seasoned surfer with 47 years of wave riding under his belt, calls the beautiful Hawaiian Islands his home. The sparkling turquoise waters of Kewalo, a picturesque surf spot, beckon him to the sea. He knows this spot well, like an old friend, and feels comfortable navigating the waves that can be both gentle and fierce. The waters of Kewalo are truly breathtaking, with their crystal-clear depths and warm, inviting temperatures. They are known to be some of the best in Hawaii, a surfer's paradise, with reliable waves that consistently break on a shallow reef. This shallow reef creates a unique surfing experience, with waves that break evenly and peel perfectly along the shore, providing the perfect canvas for a skilled surfer to carve and glide with grace and ease. One fateful day after catching a few good rides, Evan decided to take a break and rest on his board. He lay on his stomach, letting his legs dangle into the water below. The sea was calm and tranquil, and Evan was content to simply soak in the beauty of the ocean that surrounded him. But suddenly, he felt the sharp and intense pressure on his right leg, as if something had taken a hold of it with tremendous force. At first, he thought it might have been a stray piece of seaweed or wayward rock, but the pain quickly intensified, and he knew something was wrong. He looked down and saw a large, dark shape moving quickly beneath him, its jaws clamped tightly around his leg. In that moment, Evan realized he had encountered a tiger shark. He could feel the raw power of the creature as it thrashed about, dragging him and his board through the water. Fear and adrenaline coursed through his veins as he struggled to stay afloat and keep his wits about him. As Evan struggled to stay afloat and fend off the powerful shark that had latched onto his leg, his mind raced with fear and uncertainty. But even in the midst of this terrifying ordeal, Evan was surprised to find himself instinctively turning to prayer. His thoughts turned to a higher power, and he began to silently ask for help and guidance. But this was not a prayer of supplication or pleading for his life. Evan was a seasoned surfer and had faced many challenges in his life, and he felt a fierce determination rise within him. Instead of asking for mercy, he prayed for strength and courage to fight back against the shark. Evan's body surged with adrenaline as he continued to battle the shark with all his might. He punched and thrashed against the creature, each blow fueled by a primal instinct to survive. His fellow surfers heard his shouts and swearing and paddled towards him, but the struggle persisted. The shark was relentless, refusing to let go of Evan's leg, even as he punched and kicked with all his might. As the battle raged on, Evan felt a sudden jerk and was pulled beneath the waves. He was dragged into the deep, murky water, the weight of the ocean pressing down on him. But even as he was swallowed by the darkness, Evan refused to give up. He kept fighting, his adrenaline surging, and drowning out the excruciating pain in his mangled leg. Desperate to survive, Evan mustered all his strength and wrapped his arms around the massive shark, squeezing it in a bear hug. His heart pounding with fear and adrenaline, he reached for the shark's gills, his fingers digging into the soft flesh. With every punch and claw, Evan felt the shark's body convulse with pain. He could hear the creature's labored breaths, its thrashing becoming more and more erratic. And then suddenly, he felt the shark's jaws loosen its grip on his leg. Evan didn't waste a second. With a surge of energy, he pushed away from the shark and kicked towards the surface, his lungs burning for air. As he emerged from the water, gasping and coughing, he looked down and saw the massive creature disappearing into the depths below. Evan's friends sprang into action, their hearts heavy with concern, as they saw him struggling in the water. They paddled towards him as fast as they could, and with practiced ease, lifted him onto one of their longboards. As they made their way back to shore, they worked frantically to staunch the bleeding from Evan's leg. Some of them used their board leashes to create a makeshift tourniquet, their hands slick with Evan's blood. Through it all, Evan remained conscious, his mind racing with a mix of pain, fear, and determination. At one point, he mustered the strength to look down at his leg and was shocked to see only bone where his ankle and foot used to be. Despite the agony, Evan knew that he had to keep fighting. He gritted his teeth as the doctors rushed him into surgery, his body racked with pain as they amputated his right foot. But through it all, Evan never lost his spirit. He was a survivor, and he knew that he had been given a second chance at life. Juan woke up in the early hours of the morning. He lived in a small town in Florida, right on the coast, and his job as a fisherman required him to wake up early in order to get a head start on the day. He got out of bed, stretched his arms and legs, and then put on his fishing clothes. Juan had been a fisherman for most of his life. He had learned the trade from his father, who had been a fisherman before him. Juan loved being out on the water, feeling the salt air on his face and the wind in his hair. He loved the challenge of trying to catch fish, and he loved the freedom that came with being his own boss. Juan walked out of his small house and walked down to the dock where he kept his boat. The dock was busy with other fishermen who were also getting ready for their day on the water. Juan greeted his fellow fishermen with a smile and a wave, and then began to prep his boat. He checked the fuel, the water, and the other important systems on his boat, making sure that everything was in good working order. Then he loaded his gear, including his fishing rods, bait, and tackle, and set off into the open sea. The sky was just starting to turn pink and orange as Juan set out on his boat. He loved the feeling of the sun rising behind him and the way the light made the water sparkle. He headed out to his favorite fishing spot, a few miles from shore, and began to cast his lines. Fishing was not always easy, and it required a lot of patience and skill. Juan had to know where the fish would likely be, and he had to be able to read the currents and the tides in order to catch them. He spent several hours casting his lines, moving the boat around to different spots, and trying different kinds of bait. Finally, he felt a tug on his line, signaling that he had caught something. He began to reel in his line, feeling the weight of the fish pulling against the rod. When he finally saw the fish, he felt a rush of excitement. It was a large grouper, one of the most prized catches in Florida. He carefully brought the fish onto the boat, taking care to remove the hook and to measure it to make sure it was within the legal size limit. He put the fish into a cooler and then set out to catch more. After several minutes, he felt a strong tug on his line. He knew immediately that it was no ordinary fish. He began to reel in his line, feeling the weight of the creature pulling against his rod. As he brought the fish closer to the boat, he realized that he had caught something big. He could see the dorsal fin cutting through the water, and he knew that it was a shark. He could feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins as he battled the fish, trying to bring it in. Juan had mixed emotions about the catch. On the one hand, He felt a rush of excitement at the thought of catching such a powerful creature. On the other hand, he knew that sharks were dangerous animals, and he wasn't sure if he was equipped to handle one. He carefully pulled the shark closer to the boat, trying to keep a safe distance. As he got a closer look, he could see that it was a bull shark, a species known for its aggression and strength. The shark thrashed and fought against the line, trying to break free. Juan struggled to keep his footing as the boat rocked back and forth in the water. He knew he had to be careful, or the shark could easily pull him overboard. After a 20-minute battle, Juan was finally able to bring the shark up to the side of the boat. He could see its razor-sharp teeth and its powerful jaws. He knew that he had to be careful if he was going to release the shark back into the water. He carefully removed the hook from the shark's mouth and took a few quick photos, wanting to remember the experience. Just as he was about to measure the length of the shark, it began jerking around and bit him on his ankle. Luckily, he was able to pry away its jaws instantly and only left him with minor wounds. Because of this, he immediately decided to lower the shark back to the water. For a moment, the shark seemed disoriented and confused. Then it suddenly surged forward, disappearing into the depths of the ocean. Juan breathed a sigh of relief, feeling grateful for the experience, but also glad that it was over. Juan sat back in the boat and began treating his wounds, watching the waves ripple from where the shark had disappeared. He sailed back to the dock where he sought medical attention. He was sent home immediately after being treated for his minor wounds. Back at home, he told the unbelievable story to his family, and they knew he had just had one of the most thrilling experiences of his life. It was a moment he would never forget, and a reminder of the power and majesty of the sea.